the unemployment rate is at 3.9%.
Oh my gosh.
One of the lowest we've ever had.
Yeah.
What do you think?
What do I think? Well, first off, I guess we should be popping champagne corks, right? Because it's back down to pre-COVID levels, 3.9%. What's interesting about that figure, and I, being an HR guy by background, I keep an eye on the unemployment figure, month to month, and of course I sweat when it's high, and I'm happy when it's low. But unfortunately, the 3.9% figure doesn't, nearly tell the story that's out there about, unemployment right now, right? So while we do have unemployment, there's a few other things that just haven't returned to normal. One of the things that hasn't returned to normal, what percent of the population is actually participating in the workforce? And that pre-COVID level was something like 62 or 63%. It's still not quite up to that percentage. So you still have a fair number of people who are kind of out there, and they're really doing their own thing. I'm one of them, right? I made the decision, before the pandemic that, I was going to go back into consulting, and I've been happy doing that. And I think a lot of other people have made similar decisions. You've seen, this increase in the number of people who have hung up their own shingle, and they're deciding that, they're not going back to, traditional employment because they figured out that there's a better way to live. And I think companies are, beginning to see that, right? They're beginning to see that because what they're figuring out is that for the number of jobs that are out there, and by the way, here's another figure which I'll share with you, something like 10.6 million jobs open at the end of November. And it's, it's around that same number even now in January when we're recording. So just think about that for a second. In the United States, there are 10.6 million jobs open. There's a 3.9% unemployment rate. And companies are literally struggling to find people to fill those 10.6 million job openings. Now, there'll be plenty of naysayers out there who say, oh, but those are, low value jobs. Well, not necessarily. If you look at the number of openings, there's plenty of managerial jobs out there. There's plenty of technical jobs. We have more need for healthcare workers and programmers than we've ever had before. And you know this better than most. Those jobs pay, a pretty penny. So that's my quick take on it. What's yours?
I agree with that. I think, well, first of all, congrats, right, to the economy. I guess 3.9% unemployment. I think I could be wrong, but last year in December, I think we were looking at around 6.7% unemployment. So definitely a big number, a big change nationally. And we've kind of covered this in the Great Resignation, one of the prior podcasts, which is a lot of people just decided to do this fractional work.
Right.
Thinking like, what, I need to reassess what I want to do. So that's a good thing. I also believe right now in today's economy is, a lot of the employees are the ones driving the bus, right? Look, guys, yes, I do have a few less hairs or gray hairs, if not on my head, on my chin. And it's just like you, Carlos, we've seen this cycle happen. Employees happen to be in the driver's seat. The tide will change.
Yes.
Companies will adjust. And don't be surprised if, over the last 2 or 3 years of some kind of wealth or independence, people are rethinking, great, I have enough to meet my needs, and I'm going to do this fractional work for a while. And then eventually savings, start drying up, and then people want to get into a job, and then the tide will change. But it's a great thing that the economy is doing well. It is a great thing. The other thing that needs to be pointed out also is while the national average may be great, it's not the same story for every state across the U.S. Right? So with any surprise, it shouldn't be a surprise for people to know the East Coast and the West Coast are losing more jobs, or people are exiting a lot of the states for whether it is warmer climates or places that are more tax friendly or better quality of life. if I look at, for instance, some of the states like in Utah, unemployment is in November, I think it was like 2.1%.
It's worse, or better, depending on who you are.
Well, yeah, I mean, depending on which side of the fence you're sitting on, right? However, if you go to California in November, I think it was 6.9%, right? So it's a big difference from state to state. But hey, that's the reality. That's the reality of it. And with that comes, wages that will increase. I mean, that's the anticipated aspect of it, right?
That's a super great point. I was doing a little bit of research on this, and the Conference Board. Some people know what the Conference Board is, but basically an organization, think tank that looks at lots of different subjects, kind of in the business realm. They projected that this year, right, and we're right around that time of the year where companies that are on a calendar fiscal year, where they begin to plan, merit increases, right? What happens at the beginning, of the first quarter? Companies begin to put aside. I mean, technically they've been putting it aside since the year before that, but they will release or communicate what their merit budgets are for those years. And for those who are not familiar with it, basically the merit budget is that budget that they're going to use to increase salaries, right? Presumably to reward people for good performance, or to keep up with cost of living increases and so on. And so the Conference Board went out and they put out a figure which basically said, based on a survey that they put out, that companies are likely to be having merit budgets in the realm of 4.1 to 4.6% this year, whereas historically it's probably been more like 2.5 to 3%. Why? Because that merit increase budget typically matches the consumer price index, right? So if you have 3% inflation, then you set up a merit budget, that's about 3% or so. Well, guess what our inflation rate has been between last year and this year?
Well, I think in an average, it's been over 6%, right?
Way over 6%. It's between 6.1, 6.7%. And so what do you have? If you have, prices that are going up, 6 point, whatever percent, and you've got, merit budgets that are only 4%, you're going to continue to see a gap, right? There's going to continue to see a gap between what it is that, people need to make and people are making, right? And so one of the things that is quite curious is, what are companies going to be doing in order to, fill those 10.6 million jobs that are open, and in order to keep the people that they do have? Well, guess what? They're going to have to increase their salaries. Like I said, Conference Board thinks that it should be around 4.something%. Another big consultancy called Mercer, right? They are a big global human resources consultancy. They've said, I don't think that's really true. We think it's going to be, guess what? Somewhere between 3.1 and 3.5%, which has been kind of the historical. Now, I'm not a betting man, but here's my guess. I can always trust companies to be, to follow their nature, right? And most companies are going to try to get away with the least amount of merit increase that their employees will tolerate. So, if I were going to place a bet, my guess is it's not going to be over 4% that, the Conference Board is suggesting. I think it's going to be closer to what Mercer is saying, and that's about 3%. But what do you think about that?
Wow, it's a very complex question. I'll tell you why. I typically would agree with you, right, on this, but I'm going to throw a wrench into this whole theory of unemployment and raises and so on. One of the things that we are living through right now is the fact that there's a lot of individuals that are telecommuting.
Okay.
So you could be working for a big company, let's say in the Bay Area, and living in Idaho or Texas, for that matter. It used to be that unemployment was calculated based on the fact that you live in the community, you increase the community, you know what I mean? You commute to work. Now you could be 100% living somewhere else.
All right, I'm following.
But you're depending of the ecosystem, if you will, of a completely different state or location. So do you really need that big increase, or is your cost of living really decreased so much that you're just happy? Whereas the guy in retail or hospitality is like, look, I've got to show to work every day. I need that big increase.
You're speaking like an out of control capitalist right now. Right? You know, that is, but you just with your little example there, you are illustrating my point even better than I could, right? Because, you know, senior leaders in organizations, they think just that way, right? They're like, oh, okay, well, we have, you know, all of these knowledge workers, for example, they can work wherever they want. Hey, they can go to Nicaragua, for example, where the cost of living is this. And
I don't know about that.
we'll only pay them 3%, and that'll cover it. The problem, of course, is that not everybody's a knowledge worker, number one. Number two, there are plenty of people who have to live and work in the community in which their companies are located because they, you know, have to be there, right? So I take your point. I think for a percentage of the population, knowledge workers in particular, they have the luxury of picking up their little laptop and moving to, you know, Nepal if they want to, right? As long as they get a strong enough Wi-Fi signal, they can continue to clock in, do their job, and, you know, and reap the benefits of being, you know, based in the United States somewhere and making a U.S. salary. But I don't think that's true for the majority of people. So I go back to the point: what are companies going to be doing in order to make sure that they can attract people and keep people? And I believe that they're going to have to be very, very careful about how they use that money that they've been saving for a rainy day. Because I don't think that they're going to suddenly get religion and figure out they're going to pay people or pay everybody the same thing. I think what's going to happen is that they're going to go in and they're going to be very, very selective about where they pay. No peanut butter spread. And I think there's two things in particular they're going to have to really focus on. Number one, you got to attract people. If you don't have people to actually do the job, guess what? You're not going to be able to make the product. You're not going to be able to sell the service. That's number one. So just to do that, they're going to have to target a portion of that, you know, those dollars to attracting people. Here's the second thing. They're going to have to try to keep the best people that they have. And so the next place that they're going to have to go is they're going to say, you know what, for those really, really high performers in the organization, we're going to have to pay them, right? Because we can't afford for those people to leave, right? I think it's everybody in the middle that's going to get the squeeze. That's just my take. What's yours?
No, well, I wouldn't put it that way. I wouldn't put it like everybody in the middle is going to be squeezed. Of course not. Look, we've done
political senior leader that you are.
We've done enough podcasts so people know that I believe that you need to take care of people. Having said that, I also believe that businesses need to make money. Okay. Otherwise, it's just no sustainability. But just like I was talking about the unemployment rate nationally and how it varies by state, it's also going to vary by not just performance, but what is strategic for the company, right? We're going into, and technology is just embracing the world. Okay, so just like happened in the Industrial Revolution, we're going to have to cater to those needs that are going to build a business. Yeah. So if you happen to have a specialized skill that can work with technology or some other skill, you know, we're going to have to, like you said, retain you. We're going to have to be selective as a company. We're going to have to be surgical as far as understanding where do we put more effort to build a company to make it sustainable. The other side of the coin, which, you know, on my soft side or human side of it, is like, if you're the employee, you need to be able to reevaluate how you're adding value to any one organization. If you're just drilling in, you know, rivets into a sheet of metal and you think this is going to be the rest of your life, my humble advice would be rethink it. Because the reality is we're becoming more complex as a society, as a country, you know, as a world, and you need to be able to have more skills.
Absolutely.
You know, and every individual owns his or her own future. So we can't just simply say, you know, inflation is high, therefore I need to make more money. It's not about making more money because inflation is high. It's about adding value and creating value for yourself that will command a higher pay. That's the way I look at it.
On that, we absolutely agree, right? I do think that one of the things that is incumbent on people, right, is, let's go way back, right? The employer-employee contract. Everybody's heard about that, right?
Sure.
This idea that, I'm going to bring my skills, my knowledge, my capability, my time to you, and I'm going to, in good faith, I'm going to deliver that to you, and you as an employer are going to pay me for, that knowledge, skills, those abilities, and my time, right? That's the employer-employee contract. And I think one of the things that's happened is that we've lost sight of that a little bit. But to your point, I think people who really have their finger on the pulse of their careers recognize that unless they are continuously upgrading their skills and keeping track of what's coming up in the future, they're preparing for it, then they continue to make themselves viable as a potential employee. But I'll go back to the point that we started with, or potentially as an independent. And I think both of those are options. Regardless of which one you choose, that's our quick take on the unemployment rate. As always, we love sharing our opinion about it. We'd love to hear yours. Please, like, comment, subscribe. And when we say comment, please do comment. We really want to hear other people's opinions. We don't for any minute say that we're the experts on this. We just have a point of view about it, and we'd love to hear yours.
Absolutely. And by all means, do let us know if we're 100% wrong. We could be. But that's what you're there for. So until next time, be good.
And do good.
All right. Take care, guys.